On Tech News Today, Microsoft unveils OS X. No, wait, better call it Windows 10. We'll tell you everything you need to know about the next version of Windows. Plus, Comcast lets you watch DVR shows on your phone, and Path calls the restaurants, hotels, and other businesses you use so you don't have to. All that and more coming up right now on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, October 1st, 2014. This episode is brought to you by Citrix GoToAssist, the #1 global market leader in remote support. To sign up, go to GoToAssist before October 10th to get another Citrix product free for 6 months. Visit GoToAssist.com and get started. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at Gazelle.com. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. I'm Mike Elgan, and good morning to you, Jason Howell.
Hello. How's it going, sir?
It's going great. You look skeptical today. What's going on?
I don't know. You know, sometimes I just feel like I need to do things different. I'm not normally a skeptical person, but today...
You have a very cheery personality. You are an upbeat guy, despite all the abuse.
Yes.
And,
oh, boy. And is there abuse?
It's really bad. Yeah. And with us also today is our guest co-anchor, Katie Benner, a tech columnist at Bloomberg View. Welcome to you, Katie Benner.
Thanks so much.
Now, you are new to Bloomberg View. How's that going? How do you like the new gig?
Oh, I love it. It's great. Bloomberg View is a fantastic team. My editor, Tim O'Brien, is awesome, and I get to cover pretty much whatever I want. So I don't think I could ask for a better new job.
Now, Bloomberg View is all opinions all the time, right? Separate from Bloomberg News?
Exactly. It's sort of like the op-ed section of Bloomberg News. So we have great columnists, including guys like Michael Lewis, Megan McArdle, Matt Levine, all covering different aspects of the economy and business, including now me covering technology.
Wonderful. And you're in the Bloomberg offices in New York City, is that right?
Today I'm in Washington, D.C., so and going back to California at the end of the week, but it's been many, many weeks of travel and happy to get back home.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you for being our guest co-anchor today. Why don't we jump right into the news? Microsoft unveiled its Windows 10 operating system yesterday. Devindra Hardawar is a senior editor and the lead mobile writer for VentureBeat, and he joins us now to talk about it. Welcome to you, Devindra.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Where did Windows 9 go? Did I wake up in the future? What year is this?
Well, I mean, 7, 8, 9, right? So, you know, insert your joke here or whatever. I don't know. Microsoft just decided there is no Windows 9, and they skipped straight to 10. So you could read into that what you want. I almost feel like they're trying to distance themselves completely from Windows 8 and just like, you know, leave it behind. And this is just something. So Windows 10 looks a lot like Windows 7 with a few elements of Windows 8. And it's just hilarious. I'm confused, but also kind of excited because I actually prefer the more classic Windows style of Windows 7.
Sure. And in addition to that classic style, it looks like the start menu is back. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if you could talk about whether or not that makes sense from an interface point of view.
Well, I think so. Windows 10 seems to be all about getting back to the core Windows users who use keyboards and mice. And Windows 8 was all about introducing this whole new touch interface. It brought some design elements from Windows Phone. And, you know, Windows 8 was good if you had a touchscreen, but very few people do. And it really left the core Windows users kind of confused. So a start menu like this, just like Windows 7, just like we've had since Windows 95, I feel is just so people know how to use it. It's how they've learned to use their computers, you know, for almost 2 decades now. And for me, it makes a lot more sense. I think for a lot of users, they'll understand it more. And I also always felt the start screen in Windows 8, which was just this whole full screen touch-friendly view, it was really disruptive for your workflow, because if every time you went to it, it totally, you know, if you were in the desktop, you lost everything, and then you had to switch back and forth. So yeah, I think for productivity, this works a lot better. And there's still, you know, buttons there, and there's a special mode for Windows 8 or for users with touch screens. So you kind of get the best of both worlds with Windows 10.
It kind of makes sense to add a live tiles to the start menu, and it kind of doesn't. It makes sense in the sense that we're all familiar with the start menu. We're all familiar with live tiles. Putting those two together is something we're all familiar with and to a certain extent expect. But it doesn't make sense in the sense that the start menu is a pure mouse and keyboard interface, and the live tiles are a pure touch interface. And combining them that way is kind of a strange way to grapple with Microsoft's core problem, which is they're trying to move everybody into the touch world without alienating people who are still using mice and keyboard. What else is Microsoft doing to get the interface right and to manage this sort of awkward transition from mice to touch?
Well, there's so Windows 10 is smart enough to know if you have a keyboard plugged into your computer or if you're using a touchscreen. So there's actually a whole separate mode for people for if you do have a touchscreen for a device like the Surface or something. Instead of the typical start menu, you get a whole kind of full screen view that looks very similar to the Windows 8 start screen. And when you put the keyboard back in, you go back to the plain old start menu. And I think that's a good balance between touch friendliness and the productivity and keyboard and mouse usability that people expect. I actually don't mind having the live tiles right there in the start screen or the start menu because it's they don't take up much room and it is very useful for glanceable information. I'm glad they didn't just like stuff them into the background of the desktop or something, which after Windows 8 I probably would have expected somehow.
You know, it's they also announced something called Continuum for user
that's
devices.
What I was talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about that because it's really an interesting new feature.
Yeah, so it just what I said. When you plug in a keyboard and a mouse, you get your typical start screen or start menu, and when you take away the keyboard, you get the bigger start menu that looks a lot like the start screen in Windows 8.
And that's automated, but can you choose between them if you want the usual interface on a touch device, for example? Can you choose that?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I haven't had a chance to test it out yet. My download for the preview build is going on right now. I'm going to put it on a Surface and give it a good shot. But there are some other interface elements that change too for Continuum mode. I think the title bar gets a little bigger. Some of the the close and minimize buttons are a little bigger, so they're more touch friendly. So it is kind of interesting to see how Microsoft is juggling these two interface paradigms, whereas Apple still has their things completely separate. OS X is totally separate from iOS, and there is really there's no sort of integration between them yet.
And you bring up an interesting point, which I'm sorry, Katie, go ahead.
I was going to say one of the things that's sort of interesting about what Microsoft's doing with Continuum is that it feels also like very much a response to, as Devindra mentioned, what Apple and Google have done. So Apple doesn't have something that works across all devices. Google has tried. Microsoft wants to make some sort of inroad that they really have an enterprise consumer that they could be working with, because all three of these companies and others are trying to become the single internet platform, especially as we start bringing in other devices, Internet of Things devices, etc. These are companies that are trying to become a standard of some sort. And so Microsoft sort of had to make this kind of move.
Yeah.
And you both mentioned iOS 10 and the touch features in there, and also Devindra, you mentioned the fact that
not iOS 10, Mike. Let's not make that mistake.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Very confusing. But really, when it's kind of an interesting historical fact that people have largely forgotten. But when Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone in 2007. He boldly proclaimed, with a slide and everything, that that the iPhone was running OS 10. And it turns out that wasn't true. And here, again, Microsoft seems to be making claims that all their devices, including the mobile devices, will be running Windows 10. Is that really true? And if that's true, how are they doing that? It doesn't seem likely to me.
It's definitely more true than what Steve Jobs was proclaiming, because iOS kind of has some of the Unix stuff under the hood that OS X does, but it looks like Windows 10 is just kind of continuing something Microsoft has been doing with Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8. They both run, even Windows Phone has the Windows 8 kernel, and developers can actually create apps that they're not instantly compatible between both platforms, but you can easily transfer a Windows 8 app into Windows Phone, and it sounds like Windows 10 is just them moving even further on that. So that's a good news for developers, but it's also something Microsoft's been talking about for years, and it really hasn't been enough to convince developers to create amazing flagship Windows 8 apps. That's part of the big problem with Windows 8, and I think it's a good reason why Windows 10 is not as focused on those Metro apps.
Now, of course, this event I'm sorry, Katie, just one quick question. This event went into details about all kinds of enterprise and business-oriented features, and I was hoping for a big, splashy introduction of Cortana on the desktop, as has been rumored. Do you think that they're holding back for their conversation about consumers for that particular product, or is that something they see as a business or even a developer product?
Yeah, this is a really strange. Yesterday's announcement was just so strange for Microsoft because they definitely showed us a lot of early stuff, and they talked more about Windows 10 than I think a lot of people assumed they would. It just seems like they said there's going to be another event where they're going to talk about more of the consumer-facing stuff next year, and I assume Cortana is going to be a part of that. That just seems to be the way a lot of operating systems are going. You have to have some sort of voice interactive feature. And we're kind of seeing that. We're seeing Siri more integrated in OS X as well. So that would just make sense down the line. I don't know. I found it really interesting, some of the things Microsoft did choose to focus on. You can run Windows 8 apps, the Metro apps, in actual Windows now. That's kind of hilarious and amazing. And also another thing, the command prompt got some updates. You can finally press Control-V and copy and paste something into the command prompt. How many years after, the 80s when DOS came out? It's hilarious.
Great. And Devindra, I just wondering, when will Windows 10 ship? When can we expect to see this?
I think they said late 2015. So it'll be a while. But if you're interested, you can put the preview build on your computer and actually give Microsoft some feedback. So it'll be interesting to see if Microsoft actually listens to what people are saying about it.
Devindra Hardawar is at venturebeat.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at Devindra. Thank you so much for joining us today, Devindra Hardawar.
Thanks, guys.
Right. Just a sec, we have some more Microsoft news for you, but first I want to tell you about Citrix GoToAssist, a new sponsor here on Tech News Today. Citrix GoToAssist is great for IT people who have to support others because it really saves you a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of hassles, and it's very, very powerful for supporting people. You got to try this if you're in IT or do support of any kind. I highly recommend GoToAssist. It's the #1 global market leader in remote support. It's an easy-to-use, cloud-based remote support solution that allows you and your IT team to solve problems faster. Back in the old days, somebody needed help. You actually had to go to their system and sit there and use their keyboard, their mouse, their screen, their computer. And of course, those days are long gone. GoToAssist lets you just log in, even if they're not there. It allows unattended remote support to any computer and even mobile devices. So it's super powerful, and it will save you a ton of time and hassles. And everybody's going to be happy with you because you're going to be able to solve people's problems, and they won't have to wait that long. You can screen share to diagnose and fix problems faster and more effectively, and you can use GoToAssist apps to easily deliver support anytime and anywhere. If you work in IT, I want you to go to GoToAssist. Sign up, go to GoToAssist today, and get another Citrix tool free for 6 months. Visit GoToAssist.com and get started, but don't wait. This special offer ends October 10th. Visit GoToAssist.com and sign up to receive this special offer today. Well, in other Microsoft news, Microsoft unveiled a new tool called Sway, which is for creating websites. The application will be added to Microsoft Office right alongside Word and all the rest. It's designed to be super easy to use and will even suggest designs based on pictures, videos, and text that you add. You can also choose from among included templates. The resulting web pages automatically resize and redesign themselves depending on the screen size of the visitor, according to Microsoft. Apps for iOS, Android, and Windows Phone are also coming soon. The company has opened up Sway in a preview mode at sway.com, and you can request an invitation at that site. Katie Benner, did you ever use Microsoft Front Page?
Of course not.
Lucky you.
And when I read about Sway, two things sort of came to mind. First is that the ability to create websites is a pretty crowded market, and I think that there are a couple of standards. Obviously WordPress, and of course some newer entrants in the field. But one of the interesting things is that this is supposed to, I think, appeal to small business owners and try to keep people in the Microsoft software fold who might otherwise be tempted to go into some of these smaller software as a service startups that offer all sorts of things for the small business user as well.
Can I make a design observation here? Microsoft is obsessed with edges and corners, with rectangles and squares as obsessed as Apple is with rounded corners and curves and round buildings and things like that. I don't know what it is with these companies, why they get obsessed with things like this, but if you look at this, it's just like front page. Everything is a square or a rectangle. I don't know.
Exactly. And so if you are very linear, this is going to be the site for you.
It's the first worldest of problems, I suppose. Well, in other news, Comcast is launching today a new feature for its X1 DVR service. They'll now make the shows you've recorded available outside your home on your smartphone or tablet over any internet connection. Todd Spangler is the digital editor for Variety, and he joins us now to talk about this. Welcome to you, Todd Spangler.
How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Let's get started with the bad news. This isn't widely available, is it?
Well, Comcast says it's now available in about half its footprint, including San Francisco, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Chicago, and some other markets. So, you know, it's as widely as available as Comcast can possibly make it.
But the feature that enables you to watch outside your home isn't available on that's the X1 service, but this isn't available to everyone who has X1, is it?
It's available in those markets, according to Comcast.
Okay. So in other bad news, Comcast is also limiting the number of simultaneous users of the outside the home streaming, isn't it?
Well, yeah, to stay within the boundaries of the law, they are implementing this checkout concept where only one recording at a time can be in use. And that's only outside the home, and again, that's to comply with copyright laws that govern fair use in a case like this.
Now, something interesting to me, these sorts of providers used to hate the DVR. So what has changed? Why embrace now?
No, they've loved the DVR ever since they were able to charge 12 or 15 or more bucks per month for it. So the DVR has been great for the cable industry. It's been less interesting for the programmers who don't like the fact that you can skip the ads. And, they're not necessarily going to be happy about the fact that Comcast is now making this available out of the home. But again, Comcast is taking care to try to limit those concerns and stay out of any sort of legal entanglements by saying, look, you have fair use to one copy at one time outside the home, which is what they were doing before, by the way. But it was a more complicated process. You had to sideload a DVR recording onto a mobile device and then take it with you. Now you can just stream it from wherever you happen to be. And the precedent for this is pretty well established. TiVo has done this for many years on content that's not flagged anyway as do not copy. You can take a show and move it to a mobile device and take it with you.
Now, you cover this space very carefully, and of course, Comcast is facing a $45 billion bid to acquire Time Warner Cable. How do you think they're going to do there? Is there any chance that this is going to be scuttled by regulators?
I think that's an open question. I think it would take a lot of burdensome demands from regulatory agencies before Comcast threw up its hands and said, no, we're not going to do this. It doesn't make sense anymore. But we'll have to see what the FCC comes back with in terms of requirements. They did put several limitations on Comcast's acquisition of NBC Universal. And, those don't seem to have hurt Comcast's ability to operate very much at all.
Todd Spangler is at Variety.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at xspangler. That's XPANGLER. Thank you so much for joining us, Todd Spangler.
Thank you.
A new update to Path Talk, which comes from the Path social networking people, enables you to interact with companies of all kinds, but there's a unique twist to how the app handles that interaction. Ellis Hamburger is a reporter for The Verge, and he joins us by phone, I hope. Welcome to you, Ellis Hamburger.
Hey there. Yeah, sorry. We're a tech website, but we can't get our internet straightened out today. It's a real pain.
And Skype is always an unpredictable beast. Before we get into the company interaction feature, can you tell us more about Path Talk?
Sure. So Path Talk is a messaging app, a lot like all the other messaging apps you might have used. There's some really nice features, like some status icons that appear besides your friends if they have low battery, or if they're in the car, or if they're in the neighborhood. And I really like these status icons. There's something I think any chat service could benefit from. But otherwise, it's, just like Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, or whatever. Even if it's a little better, there's not really a huge value add switch if your friends aren't already on it. They seem to have some success in Indonesia, though. And I think they have about 5 million users, total active users, between Path and Path Talk. But today's update is finally, I think, provides a really great reason to use it.
So how exactly does Path Talk allow you and I to interact with companies?
So what they did was, a few months ago, they acquired this company called Talk2 that was actually almost 4 years old. And I hadn't used it before, but apparently it worked pretty well. Path basically just integrated their service straight up. Path has a great group of designers and engineers, and it works really, really well inside Path. But from what I heard, it's pretty similar to what it was in the previous Talk2 app. So the way it works is inside of Path Talk, there's a tab called Places, and you can either pick a place nearby or you can enter one in. And it uses Foursquare's database to find phone numbers and addresses for places. And you just tap the name of a place, type in a question, you get a confirmation from Path saying they received your question, and then within 5 minutes, generally, they write you back with the answer. So it's actually happening behind the scenes, because they have a call center. Talk2 did. Now they're called Path Agents, and they're just literally calling these stores up for you and asking a question, and then typing the answers right back to you.
Maybe it's me, but Path Agent sounds like pathogen. It's probably not a good name for somebody's title. They don't want that on their business cards. Now, what kind of companies can you message, and what sorts of things can you ask for or request?
I think they discourage you to try and call anything that isn't like a retail outlet of some kind. But, I don't see why you couldn't do it. So I called some restaurants to find out about reservations. I called the Apple Store. I texted the Apple Store to find out if they had a 64 gig Space Gray iPhone 6. I texted Chipotle to try and find out if there was a line. And most of the places got back within 10 minutes. The busy places like Apple and Chipotle never responded. So the pathogen texted back saying, we hadn't been able to get in touch. But after 15 minutes, they said, hey, sorry for the delay. We finally got in touch with Apple. They said they do have something available. Or they didn't. One of the nice things, though, is that they're kind of concierge-like, in that if you ask for a 7 p.m. reservation and none's available, they'll actually book you at 7:30 or 6:30 because they figure that's what you'd want anyway. And so they try and limit the amount of back and forth, because this is like a real person talking on the phone. And that's another angle on this, is that Path just raised a whole bunch of money, but it sounds like a pretty expensive operation, doesn't it? So they are thinking of some monetization ideas with this, because you are showing some purchase intent.
Have they given you any specifics about how they might monetize this? Because like you mentioned, having an entire call center of people is really expensive, and it's hard to scale without spending a lot of money.
Right. They actually did. They didn't provide any exact specifics about what kind of cut they might take. But in a lot of ways, they're generating leads, and they're showing they said 70% of the questions asked to talk to were with purchase intent in mind. Do you have the shirt? Do you have something in stock? Do you have a phone? Do you have an appointment? Do you have a reservation? And so potentially they could take a small cut of those that were successful. At least that's what they told me.
I see. And where do they get their database of places? Obviously, each place that you contact has to be in the database that they present to you, right? Where do they get that?
Yeah, so the database, I think, is from Foursquare, but they also told me that they're supplementing it behind the scenes with Talk2's own database that it's been developing over the last few years. And also, like I was saying, these people are kind of like little concierges. If they can't find a number, they're going to Google around for you and try and find it.
Interesting. Ellis Hamburger is at theverge.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at the coveted handle Hamburger. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ellis. Thanks. Google announced yesterday that anyone using Google Apps for Education will be given unlimited storage. The accounts are offered only to students and teachers at schools that support Google's education suite of products. It's not completely unlimited, though. Each file uploaded to the system must be smaller than 5 terabytes in size. What a horrible limitation. How are we going to manage it, Jason? I mean, it's just...
I don't know. I can't tell you how many 5 terabyte files I have just hanging around on my 1,000,000 terabyte hard drive. It's just...
I wonder how long... I uploaded some pictures to Google Plus yesterday, and it took like 3 hours, and that was way south of 5 terabytes. I wonder how long it would take to upload a 5 terabyte file. Katie Benner...
That's basically saying unlimited storage. That's
pretty much.
We have no cap. That's all we're saying with that.
It's like Google Plus.
They had to put a number on it.
Exactly. It's like Google Plus a post length is approximately the same length as War and Peace. It's not unlimited, but it's unlikely that anybody's going to do anything that long. Katie Benner, do you think that this is going to help get attention or new schools customers for Google? Is this a powerful incentive, or is this just something that is just expected these days?
I think it's a little bit expected, like you say. And then also, if you have students who become hooked into the Google ecosystem, they'll want to continue to use it wherever they go, whether that's school or whatever job they take later. It's sort of like when Apple many, many decades ago decided they were going to give schools Apple computers. I think it was the 2E is the one they started with, hoping that students would grow up using Apple computers and then would want Macintosh, MacBook, et cetera, et cetera. And to some extent that might have worked. So we'll see if it works this time around for Google.
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerful form of lock-in. To download those 5 terabyte files is going to take you a while, so you might as well just leave it there and keep using Google services. So in just a sec, we're going to do a quick follow-up, but first I want to tell you about Gazelle. Gazelle wants to buy your used iPhone. They want to buy your used iPad, and you want to sell it to them, and I'm going to tell you why, because it's super, super easy to do. Just go to Gazelle.com. That's Gazelle.com. Find the device you've got sitting around. Tell the condition, it's a good condition, bad condition, whatever. Sometimes they'll even buy broken screen iPads, possibly even bent ones, who knows. And they will tell you the price. That price is, like, for example, right now, if you're looking at this screen, we're looking at an iPhone 5S, 64 gigs, locked to AT&T for $285. That's the unlocked price. The locked price is $235. That's a lot of money. That's a whole lot of money that you can use. And really, that's, to me, besides the convenience, the best reason to use Gazelle is to make you feel better about that next device. We like gadgets. We want to upgrade. And this isn't a wasteful process. This is the opposite of a wasteful process, because they're going to refurbish these devices and get into the hands of someone who will love them. And that's good for the environment, because that theoretically means that there's a phone out there somewhere that's not going to be manufactured. And that's the only kind of phone that is environmentally friendly. You get paid in cash, and it's fast. They'll pay you by check, PayPal, or if you use an Amazon gift card option, you'll get 5% more. So find out what your iPhone is worth. Take a minute. Go to Gazelle.com to find out. Attorney General Eric Holder said yesterday that new encryption recently announced by Apple and Google, which can't be easily cracked even by the companies themselves, harm police investigations and could prevent the conviction of kidnappers and sexual predators. Holder was speaking to the Global Alliance Against Child Sexual Abuse Online in Washington, and although his intent was to throw Silicon Valley under the bus here, the truth is that the new encryption is a reaction to the unconstitutional mass surveillance by 2 presidential administrations, including the one Holder is part of. I'm just saying. Katie, do you think this is unfair of him to sort of think of the children about the surveillance thing when in fact it's the government's own actions that led to this encryption?
I mean, I remember the children is always one of the most cynical ploys anybody can use when they're trying to get what they want. And clearly he wasn't afraid to deploy it in this case. Is he correct? Could that happen? Of course. Of course, that's true. But as you say, this has been a long fight back and forth between companies that are trying to respect user privacy and the NSA. And I think when you talk to companies, whether it's a Facebook or a Google, they'll say that they have no desire to harm users. They have no desire to let criminals go free. But this is sort of a message they're trying to send to the government. And of course, who knows when this back and forth is going to end? It could go on for months and months and years or whatnot. And at the end of the day, the only people who are going to get hurt are probably you and me, as we have to wonder, what happens with our data and what happens with our privacy.
Yeah, I mean, it would all work out great. I'm sure there could be a way to enable the police, law enforcement, and others to gain access to encrypted technology under certain circumstances, but they have demonstrated, in my opinion, again, this is just my opinion, they have demonstrated that we can't trust them with the Constitution. And if we could, I think
this is why they can't have nice things.
Exactly. But we can't have nice encryption, so that's something. But hopefully, hopefully we'll find that balance. It's probably a pendulum swing. We're going to come swinging back the other way, I suspect. But that's just how these things go. Well, our TNT fan of the day is Christine in Calgary in Alberta, Canada, who multitasks, watching the show on her Samsung phone while doing her work as an engineer. And there is the show on her Samsung. That is a big phone. Wow. How do you watch or listen to TNT? Just record a video or take a picture of your setup and post it on Google+, Twitter, or Facebook, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we will find it. Jason and Katie, that is the tech news today. And Katie, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited about your new job. I'm really excited about reading you at Bloomberg View, and I want to thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
All right. You can subscribe to Tech News Today on Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Feedly, Yahoo, RSS. So many options. Choose your favorite at twit.tv/TNT. You can follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV. Subscribe to our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com and send us your thoughts and opinions. Send email to tnt@twit.tv. Call us at 260-TNT-SHOW. Leave a message. Also, don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight and every weeknight right here on the Twit Network. My name's Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.